The nets came up heavy in the silver pre-dawn light, and Liam Crawford knew immediately that something was wrong. In 20 years of fishing these waters, he had learned to rate the weight and drag of his catch with the instinct of a man who had no other choice. This was not the familiar pull of salmon or trout. This was the thrashing resistance of something desperate and alive in a way that fish never were. He hauled harder, muscles burning in his shoulders as the small boat rocked beneath him. The lake was glass smooth, reflecting the pale rose of approaching sunrise, and his breath came out in clouds in the cold autumn air. When the nets finally broke the surface, he saw her, green skin. That was his first impression. Green skin tangled in the heavy ropes, a body thrashing with weakening movements, tusks glinting in the growing light. An orc. His hands froze on the rope, and for a moment he simply stared, his mind racing through the implications. Orcs did not come to these waters. Orcs stayed in their mountain territories to the north, or so everyone said. Orcs were dangerous. Orcs were the enemy, but this orc was drowning in his nets. She turned her face toward him, water streaming from her dark hair, and their eyes met. Hers were amber, wide with terror and exhaustion. Her lips moved, and he heard her voice rasping over the sound of water dripping from the nets. "Please," she said. "Please don't throw me back." The words struck him like a physical blow. Throw her back. As if she were an unwanted catch, something to be discarded and forgotten. He saw the desperation in her face, the way her hands clutched at the ropes even as they cut into her palms. She was not fighting the nets anymore. She was clinging to them, clinging to his boat, as if they were the only thing standing between her and death. Liam made his decision without thinking it through. He grabbed the nets and began pulling her aboard, ignoring the protest of his back and arms. She was heavy, waterlogged and muscular, but he got her over the side of the boat and she collapsed onto the bottom with a gasping, choking sound. Water poured from her mouth and nose. She rolled onto her side, coughing violently. He stood over her, breathing hard, suddenly aware that he had just pulled an orc into his boat. An orc. If anyone saw this, if anyone knew, he would be branded a traitor. Orcs and humans were not friends. They were barely even capable of peaceful coexistence. There had been border skirmishes just last spring. Men had died, but she lay shivering at his feet, her clothes torn and soaked, and all he could think was that she had said please. "What happened to you?" he asked roughly. His voice sounded strange in the quiet dawn. "How did you get caught in my nets?" She pushed herself up on her elbows, still gasping for breath. Her hair hung in wet tangles around her face, and he could see that she was young, probably not much past 20. There were cuts on her arms, bruises on her neck. Her clothes had once been leather and wool, well made, but they were shredded now and stained with things that might have been blood. "Running," she managed to say. "I was running." Another cough racked her body. "They threw me from the cliff. I went into the water. I tried to swim, but the current." She looked up at him, those amber eyes haunted. "I got tangled. I thought I would drown." "Who threw you?" The question came out before he could stop it. He should not care. He should not want to know her story. "My clan." Her voice was flat now, emotionless. "They said I was a traitor. They said I showed mercy to humans. They were right." A bitter smile crossed her face. "I did." Liam stood frozen, torn between instinct and conscience. Every rational part of his mind screamed that he should turn the boat around, take her to the village, let the authorities deal with her. Orcs were dangerous, even young female orcs, especially orcs who had been cast out by their own kind, because who knew what desperation might drive them to do. But she was shivering so hard her teeth chattered, and there was something in her eyes that reminded him of wounded animals he had found in the woods. Fear, pain, the terrible vulnerability of something that had lost everything. "I have a cabin," he heard himself say. On the east shore. No one else lives near there. You need to get warm and dry or you will die of cold. She stared at him as if she could not believe what she was hearing. You would help me. I pulled you out of the water, he said gruffly. Seems pointless to let you freeze to death now. He turned away from her, back to the oars. Stay down. If anyone sees you, we will both have problems. He rowed hard for the eastern shore, away from the village, away from the docks where other fishermen would soon be setting out. The sun was rising properly now, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and he kept his eyes on the tree line that marked his property. His cabin was isolated, set back from the shore in a clearing he had carved out himself. He had built it with his own hands 5 years ago, after his wife died. After he decided he could not live in the village anymore, surrounded by memories and pitying looks. The boat scraped against the rocky beach, and he jumped out to haul it up onto the sand. The orc girl rose unsteadily, nearly falling as she tried to climb out. Without thinking, he reached out to steady her and felt the cool slickness of her wet skin under his hand. She flinched at the contact and he pulled back quickly. This way, he said. She followed him up the path to the cabin, stumbling occasionally on the uneven ground. He could hear her labored breathing behind him. When they reached the door, he pushed it open and gestured for her to enter. The cabin was simple. One main room with a fireplace, a bed in one corner, a table and chairs, shelves for supplies. A small back room where he stored his tools and preserved food. It was not much, but it was warm and dry and safe. He went immediately to the fireplace and began building up the fire from the embers he had banked before leaving for his dawn fishing. The orc girl stood dripping on his floor, looking around with wide eyes. She seemed shocked, as if she had not really believed he would bring her here. There are blankets in that chest, he said without looking at her. Get out of those wet clothes before you catch your death. I will turn around. He heard the sound of wet fabric hitting the floor, then rustling as she found the blankets. After a long moment, she said, I am covered. He turned. She had wrapped herself in 2 of his wool blankets, leaving her wet clothes in a pile on the floor. Her dark hair still dripped water. She looked smaller somehow, less threatening, just a young woman who had nearly died. Sit by the fire, he said. I will make something hot to drink. He busied himself with the kettle and his small store of herbs, making a simple tea that would help warm her from the inside. His hands moved automatically through the familiar motions, but his mind was racing. What was he doing? What had he done? He had an orc in his cabin. An orc who had been cast out by her own people. If anyone found out, the consequences would be severe. But she had asked him not to throw her back, and he had not been able to do it. He brought her the tea in his spare mug, and she took it with shaking hands. Her fingers were long and strong, with calluses that spoke of hard work. She wrapped both hands around the mug and breathed in the steam. Thank you, she said quietly. You did not have to do this. No, he agreed. I did not. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the crackling of the fire and the occasional drip of water from her hair. Liam found himself studying her in the firelight. Her skin was a deep forest green, darker than he had first thought. Her tusks were small, barely protruding past her upper lip, giving her face an exotic look rather than a monstrous one. Her features were strong but feminine, with high cheekbones and a straight nose. She would have been beautiful by any standard, if not for the haunted exhaustion in her eyes. "What is your name?" he asked finally. She looked up at him, surprised. "Does it matter? I would like to know what to call you." She was silent for a long moment, as if weighing whether to trust him with even this small piece of herself. "Grenna," she said finally. "My name is Grenna." "Grenna," he nodded. "I am Liam. Liam." She tested his name on her tongue, her accent making it sound slightly different. "You are kind, Liam, kinder than I deserve. Why did your clan cast you out?" The question had been burning in his mind since she had told him. Grenna looked down into her tea. "There was a raid. 6 weeks ago. My clan crossed the border into human territory, hunting. They said it was their right, that humans had taken land that belonged to us first. I went with them because that is what you do in a clan. You follow." She paused, taking a sip of tea. Liam waited. "We came across a farmstead, small place, just a man and his wife and 2 children, little ones." Her voice had gone hollow. "The others wanted to kill them all, take what they wanted. I said no. I said they were not warriors, not soldiers. Just farmers, just a family." She looked up at him. "I stood between my clan and that family. I would not move." Liam felt something tighten in his chest. "What happened?" "My uncle knocked me down. They went around me. But I had delayed them long enough that the man got his family into a hidden cellar. They could not find them. The others were angry, very angry." She touched her neck where the bruises were. "When we returned to the clan, they held a trial. They said I had betrayed my people, that I had chosen humans over orcs. The punishment for that is death or exile." A bitter smile. "I chose exile. I thought I could reach the southern territories, find another clan that might take me in, but my uncle came after me with 2 others. They caught me at the cliff. They decided exile was too good for a traitor. So they threw you into the lake." "Yes." She met his eyes. "They did not expect anyone to save me. Neither did I." Liam stood abruptly and went to the window. Dawn had fully broken now, and the lake sparkled in the sunlight. He could see his boat pulled up on the beach, the nets still piled inside it. He should go down and sort through his catch, see what he had brought up beside an orc girl. But he could not seem to make himself move. "The family you saved," he said. "Do you know their names?" "No, I never asked." "It might have been the Millers. They have a farm about 5 miles north of the border. 2 children, boy and a girl." He turned to look at her. "Everyone thought it was a miracle they survived. The husband said something scared the orcs off, but he never said what." Grenna said nothing, just stared into the fire. Liam made a decision. "You can stay here, for now. Until you are stronger and we can figure out what to do." Her head snapped up. "I cannot ask that of you, the risk. You are not asking, I am offering." He crossed his arms. "No one comes here. I keep to myself. You will be safe while you heal." "And then what?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Where do I go? My own people want me dead. Humans will kill me on sight if they know what I am." "We will worry about that when you are not half drowned and frozen," he said firmly. "For now you need food and rest. Can you eat fish?" A small, surprised laugh escaped her. "Yes, orcs eat fish." "Good, I will cook something." He headed for the door. "Try to sleep. You look exhausted." He spent the next hour down at the boat, sorting through his catch and trying to process what he had done. The nets had brought up a good haul of fish along with Grenna, enough to last him several days if he preserved them properly. He worked mechanically, gutting and cleaning, his mind elsewhere. He had not spoken to another person in weeks, had not invited anyone into his home in years. And now he had an orc woman wrapped in his blankets, sitting by his fire. The isolation that had been his refuge had become a hiding place for someone who needed it far more than he did. When he returned to the cabin with cleaned fish, he found Grenna asleep on the floor by the fire, still wrapped in the blankets. She had curled into a tight ball, and even in sleep her face looked wary, as if she expected danger at any moment. He set the fish aside quietly and pulled the quilt from his bed, draping it over her carefully. She did not wake. The days that followed fell into an unexpected rhythm. Liam went about his usual routines, checking his traps, tending his small garden plot, fishing the lake while Grenna recovered her strength. At first, She was too weak to do much more than sleep and eat the simple meals he prepared. But gradually, color returned to her face and the haunted look in her amber eyes faded somewhat. She was a quiet presence in his cabin. She spoke little, as if afraid of imposing even more than she already had. But Liam found himself noticing small things. The way she always tried to help, even when she was barely strong enough to stand. How she carefully folded the blankets each morning and kept the area around the fireplace neat. The way she watched him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, as if she could not quite figure out why he was helping her. On the fourth day, he came back from checking his traps to find that she had cleaned all his cooking pots and organized his shelves. She stood by the fire, looking guilty. "I hope you do not mind," she said quickly. "I wanted to be useful. You have done so much for me, and I have done nothing but take your charity." Liam set down his catch 2 rabbits and looked around the cabin. It was cleaner than it had been in months, maybe years. "I do not mind," he said. "Thank you." She smiled then, just a small curve of her lips, but it transformed her face. He realized with a start that she was genuinely lovely when she smiled. He looked away quickly. "Are you well enough to eat rabbit? I was going to make a stew." "I can help," she offered. They worked together in his small kitchen area, and Liam found that she knew her way around a cooking pot. She chopped vegetables with quick, efficient movements, and when he asked, she told him that she had been responsible for cooking in her clan sometimes. "What was it like?" he asked. Living with the clan, Grenna was quiet for a moment, considering. "Loud," she said finally. "Always noise, always people, everyone knowing everyone else's business. I used to wish for silence sometimes." She smiled sadly. "I got my wish. Do you miss them?" "I miss what I thought they were. I miss believing that my people were honorable, that we were better than the stories humans tell about us." She stirred the pot with more force than necessary. "But I do not miss who they actually turned out to be." Liam understood that feeling better than she knew. He had felt the same way about the village after his wife died. After he had learned how quickly sympathy turned to gossip, how easily people forgot the woman Sarah had been, and remembered only the tragedy of her death. He had built this cabin to escape that, to find peace in solitude. But he had been lonely, he realized. He just had not let himself admit it until now. The stew was good, rich and filling, and they ate together at his small table. It felt strange to have someone across from him, to hear someone else's breathing in the quiet cabin. Strange, but not unwelcome. "Tell me about the lake," Grenna said. "How long have you fished here?" So he told her about buying this land 5 years ago, about building the cabin, about learning the moods of the lake, and where the fish ran in each season. She listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she was truly paying attention. "It sounds peaceful," she said. "Lonely, but peaceful." "It has been what I needed," he said carefully. "I lost my wife 6 years ago. Fever took her. After that, I could not stay in the village. Too many memories. I am sorry." Her voice was gentle. "That must have been very hard." It was. He had not talked about Sarah in years, had not let himself, but something about Grenna made it easier. Maybe because she was a stranger, maybe because she had her own grief. "She would have liked you, I think. Sarah. She always said I judged people too quickly, saw only the surface. She would have been glad I pulled you from the water." Grenna's eyes glistened. "I think I would have liked her too." They sat in companionable silence after that, and when Liam went to bank the fire for the night, he realized that the cabin felt less empty than it had in a very long time. 2 weeks passed. Grenna grew stronger each day, and Liam found himself looking forward to returning from his work to find her there. She had taken over most of the cooking, and he discovered that she was creative with the limited ingredients he had, making meals that were far better than his usual plain fare. She mended his clothes without being asked, fixing tears and replacing buttons with neat, precise stitches. She asked if she could help with his work, and he taught her to check the traps, to gut fish properly, to identify which plants in the forest were edible and which were poison. They talked more as the days went on. He learned that she loved stories, that she could recite long, epic poems from Orcish tradition. She had a quick mind and a dry sense of humor that surprised him into laughter more than once. She asked him about human customs, about the village he had left, about the world beyond the lake. He found himself telling her things he had not spoken of in years, and he was aware, with increasing intensity, of her physical presence. The way she moved, graceful despite her muscular build. The sound of her laugh, the color of her eyes in firelight. He tried to ignore these feelings, tried to tell himself that she was here because she had nowhere else to go, that any kindness he felt toward her was only natural given the circumstances. But he was lying to himself, and he knew it. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Grenna looked at him seriously. "Liam, I need to leave soon. I have imposed on you for too long." His heart sank. "You have not imposed, you have been helpful, good company. You are kind to say so, but we both know I cannot stay here forever. Someone will eventually discover me, and when they do, you will be in danger for having sheltered me." "Where would you go?" he asked. "You said yourself that you have nowhere." "I will figure something out. Perhaps I can travel far enough south that no one knows me, find work somewhere." She did not sound convinced. "Or you could stay here." The words came out before he could stop them. "With me?" She stared at him. "Liam, I know it is complicated, I know the risks, but he struggled to find the words. "I do not want you to go. These past weeks, having you here, it has been. I have not been this content in years." "You cannot mean that." Her voice was shaking. "I am an orc. Your people hate my kind. If anyone discovers me, they will kill me. They might kill you too for harboring me." "I know the risks," he said stubbornly. "I am choosing this anyway." "Why?" she demanded. "Why would you risk so much for me?" He met her amber eyes and spoke the truth he had been avoiding. "Because I care about you, Grenna, more than I should, probably, more than is wise, but I do." The silence that followed was deafening. Grenna stood abruptly, the blanket falling from her shoulders. She paced to the window, her back to him. "You do not know what you are saying," she said finally. "You are lonely, I am here, that is all this is." "No," Liam stood too, "it is more than that. You are brave and kind and clever. You make me laugh. You see the world in ways I never considered. You saved a human family at the cost of everything you had. I have known supposedly good men who would not have done what you did." "I am an orc," she said again, as if that explained everything. "I know what you are." He moved closer, though he did not touch her. "Do you think I have not noticed? I see your green skin and your tusks every day. I know what my neighbors would say. I know what the village would do, and I am telling you that I do not care." She turned to face him, and he saw tears on her face. "Why are you doing this to me? I am not doing anything to you. I am telling you how I feel." "And what do you expect me to do with that?" Her voice broke. "Do you think I have not been fighting the same feelings? Do you think I have not noticed how kind you are, how patient, how safe I feel here with you? Do you think I have not imagined what it would be like if things were different, if I were human, if we could just be two people who cared about each other without the world tearing us apart?" Liam felt his breath catch. "Grenna." "But things are not different," she continued, her voice fierce now. "I am what I am, and you are what you are, and there is no future in this. Even if we could hide here forever, is that what you want? To live in fear every day that someone will find out? To never be able to walk together in daylight, to never acknowledge what we are to each other?" "I would rather have that than lose you," he said quietly. She closed her eyes, and more tears spilled down her green cheeks. You should not have pulled me from those nets. It would have been kinder to let me drown. Do not say that. He did touch her then, reaching out to cup her face in his hands. Her skin was warm now, not cold like it had been that first morning. Please do not say that, Liam. She opened her eyes and he saw such pain in them. I cannot give you what you want. I cannot give us what we both want. It is impossible. Then we will make it possible, he said. I do not know how yet, but we will find a way. She pulled back from him gently. You are a dreamer, a foolish, kind dreamer. Perhaps. But I have not felt this alive in 6 years. I have not wanted anything this much since Sarah died. That has to mean something. Grenner wrapped her arms around herself. It means we are both going to get hurt. Maybe, he admitted, but maybe it is worth it. She looked at him for a long moment and he saw the war in her eyes, fear and hope and longing all mixed together. Finally, she said, I will stay a little longer, but we need to be realistic about this, Liam. We need to have a plan. It was not the declaration he had hoped for, but it was not a rejection either. He nodded. We will figure it out, together. That night, Grenna moved from the floor by the fire to the bed. He had insisted she take it from the beginning, but she had refused, not wanting to take his sleeping place. Now she accepted, and he made himself a pallet on the floor with blankets and furs. As he lay in the darkness, listening to her breathing across the room, he felt a fierce protectiveness rise in him. Whatever came, he would not let her be thrown away again. He would not let the world decide she was worthless just because she was different. The autumn deepened into early winter. The trees around the cabin turned gold and crimson, then shed their leaves in preparation for the cold months ahead. Liam showed Grenna how to smoke fish and salt meat, how to preserve vegetables in his small root cellar. They worked together to gather firewood, stacking it along the cabin wall in neat rows. She was stronger than him in many ways, able to carry logs he would have struggled with, and he found himself appreciating the differences between them rather than fearing them. They settled into a domestic routine that felt natural, almost inevitable. Morning chores and shared meals. Long evenings by the fire where she taught him Orcish words, and he taught her to play the simple card games he knew. Small touches that became more frequent, hands brushing as they cooked, her shoulder against his as they sat together, his hand on her back as he moved past her in the small cabin. Neither of them spoke of love again, but it hung between them like a living thing, growing stronger with each passing day. One cold morning in late October, Liam returned from fishing to find Grenna standing in the doorway of the cabin, her face pale with fear. Someone came, she said. A man. He knocked on the door. I hid in the back room, but Liam, he was asking about you, asking if you were well, if you needed anything. Liam's blood ran cold. Who was it, did you see? I looked through the crack in the wall. Older man, gray hair, walked with a limp. Thomas. Liam cursed under his breath. Thomas Corbin, who had been his neighbor before he moved to the lake. A good man, but a curious one. What did he want? He said he had not seen you in the village for months, said people were wondering if you were all right out here alone. He left a basket of apples by the door. Liam found the basket where she had said, a dozen red apples and a note. Come to the village when you can, people worry. He showed Grenna the note and she read it with worried eyes. You should go, she said. If you do not, they will come back. Maybe bring others. Someone will find me eventually. She was right, and he knew it. His long absence had attracted attention. He would have to make an appearance, reassure people that he was fine and wanted to be left alone. The thought of leaving Grenna, even for a day, made him anxious. But the alternative was worse. I will go tomorrow, he decided. I will bring some fish to trade, make it seem like a normal visit, be back before dark. That night they stayed up later than usual, both reluctant to sleep. Grenna sat close to him by the fire, and he could feel the warmth of her body beside his. "I am afraid," she admitted quietly. "What if someone follows you back? What if they search the cabin while you are gone? The cabin will be locked. No one has any reason to suspect anything." "I will be careful, I promise." She turned to look at him, her amber eyes reflecting the firelight. "Liam, if something happens to me, if I am discovered—" "Nothing will happen," he interrupted. "If it does," she continued firmly, "I want you to know that these weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. Whatever happens now, I will never regret knowing you." The words broke something open in his chest. He reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. Her hand was larger than his, her palm calloused and strong, but it fit perfectly in his grasp. "Grenna," he said. She leaned forward and kissed him, cutting off his words. Her lips were warm and soft, tentative at first, then more certain. He kissed her back, his free hand coming up to cup the back of her head, fingers tangling in her dark hair. She tasted like the mint tea they had drunk with dinner, and when her small tusks brushed against his lip, he did not care. All he cared about was that she was here, in his arms, kissing him like he was something precious. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she whispered. "I tried not to. I tried to be sensible, but I love you, Liam Crawford." "I love you too," he said, and felt the truth of it settle into his bones. "I love you, Grenna. I do not care what anyone else thinks. You are mine, and I am yours if you will have me." "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I will have you." They kissed again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. They came together with the desperate intensity of people who had been denied connection for too long, who had found something precious and were terrified of losing it. Liam gathered her into his lap, marveling at the feel of her, the strength and softness combined. Her hands were in his hair, on his shoulders, tracing the planes of his face as if memorizing him by touch. When they finally made it to the bed, he took his time learning her body, every difference and similarity. He kissed the green skin of her shoulders, ran his hands down her muscular arms, traced the curve of her tusks with gentle fingers. She explored him with equal wonder, and when they finally came together, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Afterward, they lay tangled together under his quilt, her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. He could feel her heartbeat against his ribs, strong and steady. "I do not know how we are going to make this work," he said into the darkness, "but we will, I swear we will." "I believe you," she murmured, already half asleep. "I should not, but I do." He left at dawn the next morning, after extracting promises from Grenna that she would stay hidden, that she would not open the door for anyone. He had shown her the hiding place he had prepared in the back room, a small space under the floorboards where she could conceal herself if necessary. The thought of her having to use it made him sick, but he needed to know she would be safe. The journey to the village took 2 hours on foot. He carried a pack full of smoked fish and walked the familiar path through the forest, his mind on the woman he had left behind. Everything felt different now that they had declared themselves to each other. The stakes were higher. He had more to lose. The village was as he remembered it, a cluster of buildings around a central square. People called out greetings when they saw him, surprised and pleased. He stopped at the trading post first, exchanging his fish for flour, salt, and other supplies he needed. The owner, Marcus, was full of questions. "Where have you been hiding yourself, Liam? We have not seen you since summer." "I have been busy," Liam said evasively. "The fishing has been good. I have been laying in stores for winter." "All alone out there," Marcus shook his head. "That is no life for a man. You should come back to the village. Find yourself a new wife. Sarah would not have wanted you to isolate yourself like this." Liam gritted his teeth against the familiar platitude. I am happy where I am. He made his rounds, showing his face, reassuring people that he was alive and well. Most were content with that, but Thomas Corbin was not so easily satisfied. The older man cornered him outside the blacksmith shop. You look different, Thomas said, studying him with shrewd eyes. Happier? What is going on out there at your cabin? Nothing, Liam said. Just living quietly. Is that a crime? No, but I know you, boy. I knew you when you were married, and I have seen you these past 5 years, wrapped up in grief. This is different. You have something to live for again. Thomas smiled. I am glad. Whatever it is, I am glad. Liam felt a cold fear creep up his spine. Was he that transparent? Could people see the change in him so easily? I should get back, he said. Long walk. Come by more often, Thomas said. Even hermits need human company sometimes. The irony of that statement was not lost on Liam. He made it back to the cabin by mid-afternoon, his pack heavier with supplies. He called out as he approached, not wanting to startle Grenna, and she opened the door before he reached it. The relief on her face was palpable. Thank the gods, she said. I was worried. He pulled her into his arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her. I am fine. It went well. No one suspects anything. They carried the supplies inside together, and he told her about his day while they unpacked, but his mind was troubled. Thomas had seen through him too easily. If he went to the village again, people would start asking more questions. They would want to visit. They would get curious about why he seemed so changed. We need a better plan, he said that evening. We cannot keep hiding you here forever. Eventually, someone will find out. Grenna nodded slowly. I have been thinking about that. There are stories, old stories, about mixed communities on the far frontier. Places where humans and orcs live together in peace, far from the borders where the conflicts are. I do not know if they are real, but we could look for them, Liam finished. We could go somewhere that we could be together without hiding. It would mean leaving everything you know, she said carefully. Your home, your lake, the life you have built here. He took her hand. You are what I care about now. The rest is just things, just places. If we need to go, we will go. It would be a hard journey, especially in winter. Then we wait until spring, he said. We lay low through the cold months, gather supplies, plan our route. When the weather breaks, we leave. Grenna's face showed a fragile hope. You would really do that? Leave your home for me. I would leave the world for you, he said simply. She kissed him then, soft and sweet, and he felt the rightness of their decision settle over him like a benediction. The winter that followed was the coldest Liam could remember, and also the warmest. Snow fell thick and heavy, blocking the path to the village and isolating them completely. They burned through the woodpile at an alarming rate, and he spent hours each day out in the cold, chopping more. Grenna helped, her strength making the work easier, and they fell into an efficient partnership. Inside the cabin, they created their own small world. Grenna taught him to speak Orcish, and he learned that it was a beautiful language, full of guttural poetry. He taught her to read and write in the common tongue, which she picked up with remarkable speed. They told each other stories by the fire, played games with rocks and sticks, made love in the warm nest of their bed while the wind howled outside. It was not always easy. There were days when Grenna grew melancholy, grieving for the clan that had rejected her. Days when Liam worried about the future, about whether they were making the right choice. But they worked through it together, learning each other's moods and needs. In late December, snow blocked the door entirely, and they had to dig their way out. Liam went to check his fish traps on the lake and found them frozen solid. They would have to rely on their preserved stores until the thaw. One evening, as they lay in bed, Grenna said quietly, "What if there are no mixed communities? What if the stories are just stories?" Then we will find somewhere remote enough that no one cares what we are, Liam said. Or we will build our own community, start something new, just us, at first. But maybe others will come. Other outcasts, other people who do not fit in their assigned boxes. We could create something better. She rolled over to face him, her amber eyes serious. You really believe that is possible? I have to believe it. The alternative is unacceptable. She traced his face with her fingers, gentle and wondering. How did I get so lucky to have the one good human in the world pull me from those nets? I am not the only good human, and you are not the only good orc. There have to be others like us, people who see beyond the old hatreds. He caught her hand and kissed her palm. We just have to find them. And if we cannot, then we will make do with each other. It will be enough. You are enough, Grenna. She kissed him deeply, and he lost himself in her again, in the miracle of her existence in his life. January brought a brief thaw, and Liam made the trip to the village again. He needed more supplies, and he needed to maintain the fiction that everything was normal. This time, he noticed people watching him more closely. There were whispers that stopped when he approached. Marcus at the trading post was full of leading questions. You are looking well fed for a man living alone in winter. Must be quite the cook. I manage, Liam said neutrally. Thomas Corbin invited him for a drink at the tavern, and Liam could not refuse without seeming rude. They sat by the fire with mugs of ale, and Thomas studied him with those shrewd eyes. There is a woman, is there not? Thomas said finally. That is what has changed about you. You have found someone. Liam's blood ran cold, but he kept his face neutral. I do not know what you mean. Come now, boy, I am old, not blind. You have that look about you, that settled, content look that men get when they have someone to go home to. Thomas smiled. I am glad. It is about time you moved on from Sarah's ghost. Who is she? Someone from another village. There is no one, Liam lied. I am just learning to be content on my own. Thomas did not look convinced, but he let it drop. Well, if you do meet someone, bring her around. The village would be happy to welcome a new member. The irony was bitter in Liam's mouth. He returned home troubled and shared the conversation with Grenna. She listened with growing concern. They are getting suspicious. We should leave sooner rather than later. We cannot leave in the middle of winter, Liam argued. We would freeze to death before we got anywhere safe. Then what do? He thought hard. We become more careful. I stop going to the village. If anyone comes here, you hide. We wait for spring and then we go quickly and quietly. It was not a perfect plan, but it was all they had. February was long and brutal. The cold seemed to seep into the very bones of the cabin, and they spent most of their time huddled by the fire. Supplies were running low, and Liam rationed their food carefully. Grenna never complained, even when he knew she must be hungry. One night as they lay together trying to stay warm, she said, "Tell me about the future, about where we will go." So he painted a picture for her with words. A small homestead in a valley somewhere, far from the border conflicts. A place where they could grow their own food, raise animals, live in peace. Maybe they would find others like them, maybe they would not, but they would have each other, and that would be enough. Can we have children? She asked quietly. Is that even possible between our kinds? I do not know, he admitted. I have never heard of it, but if we cannot, that is all right. We will make a family in other ways. I would like children, she said wistfully. I always thought I would have them before. Everything. Then we will try, he promised. And if the gods are kind, maybe we will succeed. March brought the first hints of thaw. The snow began to recede, revealing the brown grass beneath. Liam started planning their journey in earnest. He studied the old maps he had, trying to plot a route that would take them far from human settlements and orc territories alike. The southern mountains seemed like their best option, remote, difficult to access, but rumored to have hidden valleys where outlaws and outcasts sometimes made their homes. They began packing supplies, taking only what they could carry. Liam sold or traded everything else on his infrequent trips to the village, claiming he was planning to do some prospecting in the mountains come spring. People seemed to accept this explanation, though Thomas gave him knowing looks. In early April, when the ice on the lake had fully melted and the first wildflowers were blooming in the forest, they prepared to leave. Liam took one last walk around his property, saying goodbye to the cabin he had built, the lake he had fished for 5 years. It hurt more than he expected, this leaving. But when he looked at Grenna, waiting for him with their packs ready, he knew he was making the right choice. They set out at dawn, heading south into the wilderness. The first few days were hard. They were not used to traveling with heavy packs, and the terrain was rough. But they fell into a rhythm, walking during the day and making camp at night. Grenna proved to be an excellent hunter, bringing down rabbits and even a small deer with the bow Liam had taught her to use. He managed the fire and the cooking, and together they survived. 2 weeks into their journey, they encountered their first real danger. They were following a stream through a narrow valley when they heard voices ahead. Human voices, rough and loud. Grenna immediately melted into the underbrush, but Liam approached cautiously. It was a group of soldiers, 5 men in the colors of the regional militia. They were resting by the stream, their weapons stacked nearby. When they saw Liam, they called out a greeting. "Well met, traveler." "What brings you to these parts?" "Prospecting," Liam said, using his prepared lie. "Looking for mineral deposits in the mountains." "Alone?" One of the soldiers, a sergeant by his markings, looked skeptical. "That is dangerous work to do solo." "I prefer it that way. Fewer people to split the profits with." The soldiers laughed at that. The sergeant offered him a place by their fire, and Liam could not refuse without seeming suspicious. He sat with them, his heart pounding, knowing that Grenna was hidden somewhere nearby, probably terrified. The soldiers talked about their patrol, about orc activity in the region. Apparently, there had been raids again, and the militia was out in force trying to track down the raiding parties. "Found evidence of a camp about 5 miles north," one soldier said. "Looked like a small group, maybe 4 or 5 orcs. We will catch up to them soon." Liam felt sick. "You are hunting orcs." "That is the job," the sergeant said grimly. "They have been hitting farms, stealing livestock, killed a man last month. We cannot let that stand." Liam thought of Grenna's uncle who had tried to kill her, thought of the clans that saw humans as enemies and humans who saw orcs as monsters, the cycle of violence that kept spinning, fed by hatred on both sides. "Safe travels," he said, standing. "I should get moving." The sergeant nodded. "Watch yourself out here. If you see any orcs, report it to the nearest garrison. Do not try to engage them yourself." Liam promised he would and left as quickly as he could without running. He walked for a mile before Grenna emerged from the trees, her face pale. "I heard everything," she said. "They are hunting my people." "Not your people anymore," Liam said firmly. "You are with me now. That is your people, us." But he could see the conflict in her eyes, and he understood. No matter what her clan had done to her, they were still orcs, still her blood. They continued south, moving faster now, always alert for signs of soldiers or orc raiding parties. The wilderness felt less like a refuge and more like a battleground, and Liam found himself jumping at every sound. 3 days later, they found the bodies. They were orcs, 4 of them, killed in what looked like a brutal fight. The soldiers had caught up with them. Grenna stood over the bodies, her face like stone, and Liam saw her hands shaking. "Did you know them?" he asked quietly. "No, but I might have." She knelt beside one of the bodies, a young male who could not have been more than 18. He was just a boy. They were raiders, Liam said, though the words tasted bitter. They killed a man, I know. Grenna closed the boy's eyes gently. I know what they were. But he was still someone's son, someone's brother, and now he is just dead in the dirt, food for scavengers. They could not bury the bodies, the ground was still too hard, and they did not have tools. But Grenna gathered stones and covered them as best she could, speaking words in Orcish that sounded like a prayer. Liam helped, and when they were done, they stood together in the fading light. I hate this, Grenna said. I hate that this is how it is. Humans killing orcs, orcs killing humans, everyone convinced they are right, that the other side is evil. When does it end? I do not know, Liam said. But we are trying to find a different way. That has to count for something. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arms around her. They stood like that for a long time, two small figures in the vast wilderness, holding each other against the darkness. They pressed on, moving deeper into the mountains. The terrain grew more rugged, the paths harder to find, but they also saw fewer signs of human or orc activity. This was truly wild country, and Liam began to hope that they might actually find a place where they could disappear. In late April, they crested a ridge and looked down into a hidden valley. It was beautiful, a green bowl surrounded by steep cliffs, with a stream running through the center. Trees clustered along the water, and Liam could see meadows that would bloom with wildflowers in summer. It looked untouched, pristine. There, Grenna breathed. That could be home. They descended into the valley carefully, alert for any signs that others had been here before them. But the valley seemed empty. The only tracks they found were those of deer and other game. The stream was clear and cold, full of fish. The soil along the banks looked fertile. We could build here, Liam said, his mind already racing ahead. A cabin by the stream, a garden plot in that meadow. There is good timber for building, and the cliffs would protect us from the worst of the wind. It is perfect, Grenna said, and he heard the wonder in her voice. It is everything you described. They spent the next several days exploring the valley, confirming that it was as ideal as it seemed. There was a cave on the eastern side that could provide temporary shelter while they built. Fruit trees grew wild in some areas, apple and plum. The hunting was excellent. It was as if they had stumbled into paradise. On their 5th day in the valley, Liam asked Grenna to marry him. They were sitting by the stream in the evening light, and he turned to her and took her hand. I know we cannot have a formal ceremony. No priest would marry us, but I want you to be my wife in every way that matters. I want to pledge myself to you before the gods and nature and spend the rest of my life making you happy. Grenna's eyes filled with tears. Yes, yes, Liam, I want that too. So they made their own vows there by the stream, with only the mountains and stars as witnesses. Liam spoke first, promising to love and cherish her, to stand by her side through whatever came, to build a life with her that honored both their peoples. Grenna spoke in Orcish, then translated for him, promising her strength and her heart, her loyalty and her love, for as long as they both lived. They sealed their vows with a kiss, and when Grenna pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. I wish we had rings, Liam said. Some symbol to mark this. Grenna thought for a moment, then took a knife and cut a thin strip of leather from her belt. She did the same to his. She tied hers around his wrist, and he tied his around hers, knotting them carefully. There, she said. These will be our rings, a reminder that we are bound together no matter what. That night they consummated their marriage under the stars, and Liam had never felt more complete. This woman, this green-skinned, tusked, beautiful woman, was his wife, his partner, his future. They started building the next day. It was hard work, harder than anything Liam had done before, but Grenna's strength made the impossible possible. She could lift logs he could barely move, could work for hours without tiring. Together they felled trees, shaped timber, began to raise the frame of a cabin. As the weeks passed, the cabin took shape. It was rough, nothing like the neat structure Liam had built at the lake, but it was theirs. They chinked the walls with mud and moss, built a stone fireplace, fitted a door made of split planks. Grenna wove grass mats for the floor, and Liam built furniture from rough-cut wood: a table, chairs, a bed frame. By midsummer they had a home. It was small and simple, but it was solid and weatherproof and beautiful in its own way. They stood together looking at it, exhausted and proud. "We did it," Grenna said. "We actually did it." "We did," Liam agreed. He pulled her close. "This is our beginning, our real beginning." They planted a garden that summer, using seeds Liam had brought from his old cabin. The soil was rich, and things grew quickly. They tended their crops together, weeding and watering, and watched with satisfaction as green shoots became healthy plants. They hunted and fished, smoked and preserved meat for the coming winter. They explored every corner of their valley, learning its moods and secrets, and they loved each other with a fierce joy that never diminished. Every morning, Liam woke next to Grenna and marveled that she was his. Every evening, Grenna watched the sunset with Liam beside her and felt grateful for the fisherman who had pulled her from his nets. In the autumn, they discovered that Grenna was pregnant. She had missed her monthly blood twice, and her body was changing in subtle ways. When she told Liam, his face went through a dozen emotions: shock, wonder, fear, and finally pure joy. "I did not think it was possible," he said, placing his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "I did not dare hope." "Neither did I," Grenna admitted. "I do not know what this child will be like. Half human, half orc. Will it be healthy?" "Will it be? It will be ours," Liam interrupted. "And we will love it, no matter what." The pregnancy progressed normally, or as normally as they could tell, given that neither of them had any experience with mixed-blood children. Grenna remained strong and healthy, though she tired more easily as winter approached. Liam fussed over her constantly, making sure she rested, that she ate well, that she stayed warm. They spent the long winter evenings preparing for the baby, making small clothes from soft leather and cloth, carving toys from wood, turning one corner of their cabin into a nursery. Grenna told Liam about orcish traditions for welcoming children, and he shared human customs. They decided to blend both, creating their own unique way of doing things. In late February, on a night when the snow fell thick and silent, Grenna went into labor. Liam had attended animal births, but never a human one, and certainly not a half-orc one. He did his best to help, heating water, bringing clean cloths, holding Grenna's hand as she labored through the contractions. It was a long, difficult night. Grenna was strong, but the pain was intense, and there were moments when Liam feared for both her and the child. But she persevered, gritting her teeth and bearing down when the time came, and just before dawn their daughter was born. She was perfect. Small and squalling and perfect. Her skin was a pale green, lighter than Grenna's but definitely not human. She had tiny nubs where tusks would grow, delicate pointed ears, and a full head of dark hair. When Liam placed her in Grenna's arms, the baby quieted and looked up at her mother with eyes that were a striking mix of amber and brown. "She is beautiful," Grenna whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She is so beautiful." "What should we name her?" Liam asked, stroking his daughter's tiny hand with one finger. They had discussed names, but nothing had felt quite right. Now, looking at their child, Grenna said, "Hope. I want to call her Hope, because that is what she is. Hope for a better future." "Hope," Liam repeated. "Hope Crawford," he smiled. "I like it." Little Hope thrived. She was a healthy, happy baby who inherited her mother's strength and her father's curiosity. Watching her grow became the center of their lives. They marveled at every milestone: her first smile, her first laugh, the day she rolled over by herself. As spring returned to the valley, Liam found himself reflecting on how much had changed in just over a year. He had gone from a lonely hermit to a husband and father. He had found love in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person. And now he had a daughter who represented everything he believed in: that love could bridge any divide, that the future did not have to be defined by the hatreds of the past. One evening, as they sat outside watching Hope play in the grass, Grenna said, "Do you ever regret it?" Leaving your old life behind, Liam considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the lake, the simplicity of that life, but regret? Never. This," he gestured to their cabin, to Hope, to her, "this is everything I never knew I wanted. You are everything." "We should think about the future," Grenna said. "Hope will grow up, she will have questions, she will want to know about the world beyond this valley. We will tell her the truth, that her mother is brave and strong, that her father loves her more than life, that she comes from two peoples who have been at war, but that she represents peace, hope for something better. And if others find us, if we are discovered," Liam took her hand, "then we face it together. We have built something here, Grenna, something worth fighting for, a family, a home, a new way of living. I will not let anyone take that from us." As summer deepened, they fell into a comfortable routine with Hope. Grenna would carry her in a sling while working in the garden, talking to her in both Orcish and the common tongue. Liam would carve toys for her in the evenings, delighting in her babbling attempts at speech. They were isolated but not lonely, complete in each other. One afternoon in late July, as Liam was fishing in the stream, he heard Hope cry out. Not her usual fussy cry, but a sound of alarm. He dropped his pole and ran back to the cabin, his heart pounding. He found Grenna standing in the doorway, Hope clutched protectively in her arms, staring at a figure emerging from the forest. It was an orc. Male, older, with scars crossing his green face and intelligent eyes that took in everything: the cabin, the garden, Grenna and the child in her arms. Liam positioned himself between the stranger and his family, though he had no weapon. "What do you want?" The orc held up his hands, showing they were empty. "Peace, I mean no harm." His voice was deep and rough, his accent thick. He looked at Grenna. "I know you. You are Grenna, daughter of Morg. You were cast out by your clan. You know me, but I do not know you," Grenna said carefully. "I am Dirk. I left my clan 5 years ago. I have been wandering since, looking for others like me, others who believe there is a better way than endless war." He looked at Liam. "When I saw the smoke from your fire, I had to investigate. I did not expect to find this. How did you find this valley?" Liam demanded. "No one should be able to find this place. I am a good tracker, and I have been searching a long time." Dirk's eyes fell on Hope, and something softened in his face. "Is that child yours, both of yours?" "Yes," Grenna said, lifting her chin defiantly. "She is our daughter." Dirk was silent for a long moment. Then, to Liam's shock, the orc smiled. "Remarkable. I have heard stories, but I never thought. May I approach? I swear on my ancestors, I mean you no harm." Liam looked at Grenna, who nodded slightly. He stepped aside and Dirk came closer, moving slowly and carefully. He studied Hope with wonder. "What is her name?" "Hope," Grenna said. "Hope," Dirk nodded. "A good name, a true name." He looked up at them. "I have found 3 others like me over the years. Orcs who are tired of fighting, tired of hating. We have been talking about establishing a community somewhere remote. Somewhere we could live in peace, maybe even trade with humans who are willing." He gestured to the valley. "This place. It could be that community, if you would allow it." Liam and Grenna exchanged glances. They had talked about this possibility, about whether others might someday join them. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. "We would need to meet these others," Grenna said carefully. "Know their intentions. This is our home, our daughter's home. We will not risk her safety." "Of course," Dirk said. "I would not expect you to trust blindly. Give me a few weeks. I will return with the others. You can judge for yourselves what kind of people they are." It was a risk, but Liam found himself wanting to take it. The idea of not being alone, of building something bigger than just their small family, was appealing. And if Dirk had wanted to hurt them, he could have attacked already instead of talking. "All right," he said. "Come back in 3 weeks. We will meet your friends." "But Dirk, if this is a trap, if you bring trouble to our door, I will do whatever it takes to protect my family." "I understand," Dirk said seriously. "And I respect that. I will return, and I will bring only those who seek peace." The orc left as quietly as he had come, disappearing into the forest. Liam and Grenna stood together, watching him go, Hope gurgling happily in her mother's arms, oblivious to the significance of what had just happened. "Did we make the right choice?" Grenna asked. "I do not know," Liam admitted. "But we made the choice that gives us the most hope. That is all we can do." The next 3 weeks were tense. They discussed what they would do if Dirk returned with hostile orcs, planning escape routes and preparing what few weapons they had. But they also talked about what it might mean if Dirk was genuine, if there really were others seeking an alternative to the endless cycle of violence. When Dirk returned, he brought 4 others with him. 3 orcs, 2 males and a female, and to Liam's shock, a human woman. They approached openly, calling out greetings from a distance. Liam and Grenna met them in the meadow in front of their cabin, with Hope safely inside. Dirk made introductions. The female orc was named Rasha, a healer who had been cast out for refusing to let human prisoners die without treatment. The 2 males were brothers, Grok and Mako, who had deserted from a raiding party rather than burn a village full of civilians. And the human woman was Olivia Sterling, a widow whose husband had been killed in a border skirmish. She had left her village because she could not stand the hatred anymore, the constant calls for revenge. "We have been traveling together for 8 months, Dirk explained, looking for a place where we could start something new. When I found your valley, I knew this was it." They talked for hours. Liam and Grenna asked hard questions about intentions, about beliefs, about what kind of community these people wanted to build. The answers satisfied them. These were not people looking to hide from the world, but people who wanted to create an alternative to it. A place where humans and orcs could live side by side, proving that peace was possible. "There are others," Olivia said. "Other humans who have lost faith in the war. Other orcs who are tired of fighting. If we build something here, if we show it can work, they will come." "It will not be easy," Grenna warned. "There will be those who see us as traitors. Both sides will hate us." "Let them hate," Rasha said fiercely. "I am tired of living my life according to fear and old grudges. I want something better. We all do." Liam looked at Grenna, saw his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. This was bigger than them now. This was about Hope's future, about the world they wanted her to grow up in. "Then we build together," he said. "But we do it right. We establish rules. We make sure everyone is committed to peace, to cooperation. We make this a place worth protecting." They shook hands on it, humans and orcs together, sealing a pact that would have been unthinkable anywhere else. The settlement grew slowly over the following months. Dirk's group built their own cabins, spreading out across the valley but staying close enough for mutual support. They pooled their resources, their skills. Rasha taught them all about healing herbs. Grok and Mako were excellent builders. Olivia knew how to preserve food and make soap, and a dozen other useful skills. More people came, trickling in one or two at a time. Each new arrival was carefully vetted, their intentions questioned, their commitment to peace tested. Some were turned away. But those who stayed added to the growing community. By the time Hope took her first steps, there were 15 people living in the valley, 8 orcs and 7 humans. They held councils to make decisions, established rules for living together, created systems for sharing work and resources. There were tensions sometimes, old prejudices that died hard, but they worked through them with patience and determination. Liam found himself becoming a leader, though he had never sought the role. People came to him to settle disputes, to ask advice. He and Grenna became a symbol of what was possible, proof that love could bridge the divide. And Hope, growing bigger and stronger every day, was the living embodiment of their hope for the future. On Hope's second birthday, the entire community gathered to celebrate. They had a feast, with food contributed by everyone. The orcs sang traditional songs, and the humans taught them folk dances. Children played together. 3 more had been born in the valley, all of them fully orc or fully human, but treated with equal love by everyone. As Liam watched Hope run through the meadow, laughing as she was chased by older children, he felt Grenna slip her hand into his. "We did this," she said softly. "We started this." "We did," he agreed, "and it is more than I ever dreamed." "You think it will last? Do you think we can really keep this separate from the world outside?" It was a question that haunted him sometimes. They were isolated for now, but word of their community would spread eventually. "What would happen then? I do not know," he said honestly. "But I know we have built something real here, something worth fighting for, and if the world comes for us, we will face it together, all of us." Grenna leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Liam Crawford, for pulling me from those nets, for seeing me when others saw only a monster. For building this life with me." "I love you too," he said. "You are my heart, Grenna, you and Hope. You always will be." As the sun set over their valley, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Liam reflected on the path that had brought him here. A lonely fisherman on a cold dawn, pulling up nets that held an unexpected catch. An orc girl, desperate and drowning, asking not to be thrown back. A choice made in a moment that had changed everything. He had saved her that morning. But the truth was, she had saved him too. Saved him from a life half-lived, from loneliness, from the belief that he would never be whole again. Together they had created something beautiful from the wreckage of their old lives. A home, a family, a community, hope. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges ahead, threats from those who saw their community as an abomination or a threat. But Liam was not afraid. He had Grenna by his side, hope growing strong and brave, and a valley full of people who believed in the same dream. They had proven that orcs and humans could live together in peace, that love could overcome prejudice, that a different way was possible, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Years passed, and the community in the valley continued to grow. Word spread through the underground network of people seeking alternatives to the endless war. More came orc outcasts, human refugees, even a few half-blood children born to mixed couples in other remote settlements. The valley that had once held only Liam and Grenna now housed over 50 people, with more arriving each season. Liam built a larger meeting hall where the council convened, where they held celebrations and resolved disputes. They established a school where children of all races learned together. Grenna became one of the primary teachers, passing on knowledge of both human and orcish cultures, ensuring that the next generation understood both their heritages. Hope grew into a remarkable young girl, smart and strong and compassionate. She spoke both languages fluently, moved easily between orc and human children, and seemed to inherently understand the bridge she represented. Other mixed-blood children followed, and Hope became their unofficial leader, the eldest of a new generation that would never know the old hatreds the way their parents had. The settlement developed trade relationships with a few brave merchants willing to make the journey into the mountains. They sold furs and herbs and beautifully crafted goods made by their skilled artisans. In return, they received tools, seed, and news of the outside world. The news was not always good. The war between orcs and humans continued in other regions, but their little valley remained at peace. One spring morning, when Hope was 10 years old, she came running to find Liam and Grenna with exciting news. "There are people coming, a whole group, at least 20 of them." Liam and Grenna exchanged concerned looks. That was far more than usually came at once. They gathered the council quickly and went to meet the newcomers. What they found surprised them. It was indeed about 20 people, a mix of humans and orcs, but also several families with children. They looked tired and travel-worn, but not hostile. An older human man stepped forward as their spokesperson. "We heard about this place, a valley where our peoples live together in peace. We had to see if it was true." He looked around at the cabins, the gardens, the orc and human children playing together in the meadow. His eyes filled with tears. "It is true. Thank the gods, it is true." "Who are you?" Grenna asked. "Refugees," the man said. "From a village that was destroyed in the fighting. We lost everything. Humans blamed orcs, orcs blamed humans, and we could not do it anymore. Some of us started talking, realized we were all just people trying to survive. We decided to leave together to find somewhere we could live without fear. Someone told us about this place." Liam felt his throat tighten. This was what they had hoped for, what they had dreamed about. But it was also a responsibility. Could their community absorb this many people at once? He looked at Grenna, who nodded. They had built this place on the principle of offering refuge to those who sought peace. They could not turn away people who needed them. "Welcome," he said. "We will make room. We will help you build homes. But you must understand we have rules here. We live by principles of peace and cooperation. Everyone contributes. Everyone respects each other. If you cannot accept that, you cannot stay." "We accept," the man said, and others in the group echoed him. "We want what you have built here. We want to be part of it." The integration of the newcomers was challenging but ultimately successful. The community rallied together to help build new cabins, to expand the gardens, to teach the newcomers how they operated. Some of the refugees had useful skills: a blacksmith, a weaver, a carpenter. The valley's capacity and capability grew. With the expansion came new challenges. There were cultural clashes to navigate, resource allocation to manage, more complex governance needs. Liam found himself spending long hours in council meetings, mediating disputes, helping craft policies that would serve their growing population. But there were also beautiful moments. The blacksmith, a gruff human man named Luther, formed an unlikely friendship with Grok, teaching him the trade. Olivia married one of the orc refugees, a quiet poet named Thran, in a ceremony that blended both traditions. More mixed couples formed, more half-blood children were born. The lines between human and orc began to blur in ways that would have been unthinkable a decade before. On the 10th anniversary of the day Liam had pulled Grenna from his nets, the community held a grand celebration. Everyone contributed food, music, and decorations. There was dancing and laughter, children running wild through the meadow, people of two races mingling as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As the celebration wound down, Liam stood with Grenna on a small rise overlooking the valley. Hope was below them somewhere, surrounded by friends. Lights from dozens of cabins twinkled in the gathering dusk. 10 years, Grenna said softly. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. I remember every moment of that morning, Liam said. The weight of the nets. The fear in your eyes. The way you said, please do not throw me back. Best fishing catch you ever made, Grenna teased. He laughed and pulled her close. The only catch that mattered. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching their community settle in for the night. Then Grenna said, "We have done something important here, Liam. Something that will outlast us. These children growing up together, learning to see each other as people first. They are the future. They will carry this forward." "I know," he said, "and it started with one choice. One moment when I could have looked at you and seen only an orc, but instead saw someone who needed help. And one moment when I could have hated you for being human, but instead saw someone kind." She turned to face him, her amber eyes reflecting the last light of sunset. "We made each other better, Liam. We made the world better." "We are not done yet," he said. "There is still so much to do. This community needs to keep growing, needs to become strong enough to defend itself. We need to reach out to other settlements, spread the message that peace is possible." "One step at a time," Grenna said. "We have already done the impossible. Everything else is just details." In the years that followed, the Valley settlement continued to evolve. They sent emissaries to other regions, looking for people who might be sympathetic to their cause. They established satellite communities in other remote locations, creating a network of settlements where humans and orcs lived together. It was slow, difficult work, and there were setbacks. Some emissaries never returned. Some satellite settlements failed or were discovered and destroyed by those who opposed their vision. But the original valley endured. It became known, in whispered conversations and secret meetings, as Haven, a place where the old rules did not apply, where a person was judged by their character, not their race, where children of two species played together without knowing they were supposed to be enemies. Liam and Grenna grew older. Gray appeared in their hair, lines formed around their eyes, but their love never faded. If anything, it grew stronger, deepened by shared trials and triumphs. They remained the heart of Haven, the living symbol of what was possible. Hope grew into a young woman, brilliant and beautiful and strong. She became a leader in her own right, advocating fiercely for the rights of half-bloods, helping to establish more mixed communities. She married a young human man who had come to Haven as a child, and when they had children of their own quarter-orc children, who looked almost entirely human, except for a slight green tint to their skin and unusually sharp canines, it was another step toward the blended future they all hoped for. One evening, when Liam was in his 60s and Grenna was approaching her 50s, they sat together on the porch of their cabin. The original structure had been expanded and improved over the years, but it was still fundamentally the same home they had built together that first summer. "Do you ever think about that morning?" Liam asked. "About how easily things could have gone differently?" "All the time," Grenna admitted. "If you had been a different kind of man, if I had not been desperate enough to beg, if any one of 1,000 things had changed." She shook her head. "We were lucky." "It was not just luck," Liam insisted. "It was choice. We chose each other. We chose to believe in something better, and we kept choosing it every day, even when it was hard." "You are right," Grenna said, smiling. "We chose this. And I would choose it again, 1,000 times over." They sat in peaceful silence, watching the sun set over the valley that had become home to so many. Children's laughter drifted up from the village center. Smoke rose from dozens of chimneys. Somewhere, someone was playing a musical instrument, blending orcish rhythms with human melodies into something new and beautiful. This was their legacy. Not just the buildings or the community, but the idea itself. The proof that love could bridge any divide, that people could choose peace over war, that the future did not have to be defined by the mistakes of the past. Liam reached for Grenna's hand, lacing his weathered fingers through her still strong ones. "Thank you," he said, "for asking me not to throw you back, for trusting me when you had no reason to, for building this life with me." "Thank you for pulling me from the nets," Grenna replied, "for seeing me, for loving me, for giving me hope when I had lost everything." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they sat together in the home they had built, in the community they had founded, surrounded by the family they had created. The fisherman and the orc girl, whose chance encounter at dawn had changed everything. And far away in the darkness, other fishermen checked other nets, other people made other choices. The world was still full of hatred and fear, still scarred by old conflicts. But here in this hidden valley, peace was not just a dream. It was real. It was alive. It was growing. And it all started with one moment, one choice, one desperate plea. "Please don't throw me back." And the fisherman, whose hands had only known loneliness and loss, had chosen to pull her into his boat, into his life, into his heart. That choice had made all the difference.